Hello and welcome. Chris from Missouri here, bringing you another video about vintage baseball cards. In this video, I get to show you some vintage cards. And I'm going to show you some vintage cards that I recently got back off of eBay. Now, I've told you before, but I don't buy expensive cards on eBay. I don't know why. I really don't like them to go to another grading site other than the one they're at. But again, I don't think I've ever spent $80 on a card on eBay. I'd rather see them at a show and pick them up. But I picked up these vintage cards, and as I'm looking at them, I start thinking about what is vintage. What is a vintage card, and am I doing it right? See, I've been influenced over the years, I believe, and conditioned to tell you that I believe 1980 and older are vintage cards. Now I can lump them, give them another little term, like all the way to 1948 Bowman. Anything before that can be called pre-war, but I always have called them vintage cards and just lumped them all together. Even the T206s are vintage, and even though they also can be pre-war, that's all just terms, right? But I've always thought 1980 was the last year of the vintage card. But if you think about it, that's 45 years ago. And I'm not the smartest knife in the drawer or the sharpest knife in the drawer, but that means that 1981 cards are 44 years old. That's a long time ago. And 82 is old and 83 is old, but I don't have a term for them. I don't know what you guys consider vintage, but how I got conditioned to it was we had these magazines, price guides, and this is a new vintage collector price guide. And it has a picture of Dave Clyde on there. Now, I was getting ready on this channel to do a story about David Clyde. But you now don't have to listen to me when I do my story. You can just go pick up this vintage collector price guide and it'll tell you. But in this magazine right here, the vintage prices go up to 1980. So 1980 and below, all the way back to the T206 cards, they have prices on the values of them. And so maybe over the years that made me see condition to that being vintage. But I would like to know from you guys what you consider vintage. And also, what do you call cards 1981 and above? I mean, they're 45 years old, 44 years old. And do you have a term if your vintage goes up to 85 or 89? Do you have a term afterwards? Because I use the term junk wax, and I know there's a couple guys do videos that don't like the term junk wax, but it's what, when I say the term junk wax, most collectors, vintage collectors, know what I'm talking about, and most people don't get offended. It's just junk wax. Now, let me know again. What do you consider vintage, and what do you call anything 81 and above if you're like me? Now, here's the cards that I want to show you, and just to let you guys know, I'm going after cards. I'm going after every Hall of Fame base card of every player right now from 1980 all the way back to 1948 Bowman. I'm actually also trying to get all the all the Hall of Famers in every set, and I'm going to store them in a new piece of furniture that I'm getting, that they can be available, and I'm excited about it. But the year I needed the most cards wasn't 1952, wasn't 1954, it was 1980. They just didn't get me excited, and by looking at them now, I have a deeper appreciation for them than I ever had. So tell me what you think. I'm going to show you some cards. I still have plenty of 1980 Hall of Fame cards that I need to pick up. Now, this is a 1980 Alan Trammell. Now, if you're going to do an Alan Trammell run, you got to have this card. His first cards, he's on that card with Paul Molitor, and it's a beautiful card. But his 1980, that's a beauty, and I really like it. 45 years old, holy cow. How about Raleigh Fingers? Going to do a Raleigh Fingers run, you need this card here as well, right? And I love the way it looks. I love the backs on these cards as well. But what a beautiful card. How about Andre Dawson? And how about Jim Rice? Now, maybe sometime I'll be doing Showcase Showdown with Mike Baseball Collector with those 1980 cards. Now, they're, again, 45 years old. I think maybe once I get all that other stuff that I'm going after, I then will start 1981 cards and maybe work my way up until I don't want to get any more Hall of Fame cards, or I can't store, or I can't have in my baseball card room. If you get a chance, leave me a message on here and tell me what you think. I really do appreciate your guys' thoughts on that. And maybe you can influence me a little different way, or maybe you can reinforce what I've been thinking all these years. And, guys, 10 years ago, I think I would have rolled my eyes if I'd have been excited to pick up 4 Hall of Fame 1980 cards. I've had complete sets of 1980 cards. I never sent hardly anyone off to get graded or slabbed unless they're part of my, Johnny Bench run or George Brett run. So I'm chasing down a bunch of 1980 Hall of Famers. I love the way they look. It hits me that they're 45 years old, but gosh, it's fun looking at cards. And guys, remember, this is just a hobby. Collect what you like.